Okay, here we want to match the graphs to the parametric equations where x is equal to f of t and y is equal to g of t through a through d. So these are our graphs. And we're going to match them with 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to give reasons for the choices. So if we take a look at the graph, here we can see that the horizontal axis is t. And then the vertical axis is x and y. So it's telling us the following. So if we have a table, we know there's a value for t, there's a value for x, and then there's a value for y. Okay? So we know that when t over here is equal to 0 and when it's equal to 0 here. Okay, so if we look at t and we see when it's 0, well, what is the value for x? Well, it's 1. And then what is the value for y? Well, it's 0. Okay, and then if we take a look at when t is 1 or 1, 0, we can at least determine that when t is equal to 0, we have an ordered pair of 1, 0. So that means that in these graphs, 1, 2, 3, or 4, it has to pass through the point 1, 0. Well, the only point that it passes through at 1, 0 is in number 3, because we can see here that this is the point 1, 0, and this is when it starts. So therefore, we can say that it is number 3. Summarizing that, we would say that from the first graph, we can see that x goes from 1 to 2. We can see that y goes from -1 to 1. And so the only choice that satisfies either of those conditions is number 3. So now let's take a look at part B. So we'll look at part B using these graphs still. Okay, so again, if we create a table, if we have t, we have x, and then we have y. So we know that the horizontal axis is t. So when we take a look at the value of t when it is 0, well, the value of x is 0 on the first graph, and the value of y is 0. So that means that when t is equal to 0, the first ordered pair is 0, 0. So if we take a look at one of these choices, where does it go through the origin? Well, the only one that it goes through the origin is number 1. And this is the origin where t is equal to 0. And so let's go ahead and summarize this. We can see that from the first graph, the values of x cycle through the values of -2 to 2 4 times. So it goes to 1, and then 2, 3, and then 4. So we can see that it cycles 4 times. And then from the second graph, we can see that the y values cycle through the values 6 times. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. So now let's take a look at graph C. So the two choices that we have left are 2 and 4. So again here, if we have our table, we have the value of t, we have the value of x, and then we have the value of y. Okay, so let's see when t is equal to 0. So when t is equal to 0, the value of x here is 0. And then over here on this side, when t is 0, the value of y is 2. So the ordered pair is 0, 2, and that's where it starts when t is equal to 0. So which one of these goes through the point 0, 2? Well, it is number 4, because we can see that right here is where t is equal to 0. And so from the first graph, the values of x cycle through the values from -2 to 2 3 times. From the second graph, we have 0 to 2. So choice number 4 satisfies these conditions. So we should know then part D, or graph D, is going to match with number 2. And by matching it with 2, if we wanted to create a table first, we have a value of T, and then X, and then Y. And so if we look at when T is equal to 0, for X it's approximately about 1.8. And then for the Y it's at 2. So the order pair is at 1.8 and then 2, which is right about around here. So that's where T is equal to 0. And now summarizing, we can say that from the first graph, the values of X cycle from -2 all the way up to 2 times. And then from the second graph, the values of Y do the exact same thing. So choice 2 satisfies these conditions.